Good morning, Terrence. This is your favorite alien speaking on Sunday, May 27th. And I figured I'll do one video before I take most of the summer off here and let you guys know uh, a little bit more, okay, on how we changed and give you some ideas on why, if you keep on going this road, you're going to end up like my ancestors did on their planet who blew themselves up. Uh, And today I'm going to do a video on three things, and I'll call it Aliens Notes. So you guys can take the notes and throw them down file 13 like most of you will, but hey. Oh, and by the way, even though I'm violating my prime directive, I'll get a slap on the wrist because you guys never changed. So it doesn't cost me anything but a growl from my bosses. And then they'll want to study you to figure out, with all the stuff that I told you, why didn't you change? So, you know, that is the question because they see you as 1,000 years later, their version of your version of their ancestors, and why they, with all the stuff they had in front of them, why didn't they change? So here's the particulars. Number one, agendas. That seems to be all you have on this planet is agendas. You have no vision, you have no nothing, just agendas. And that's going to cost you to go down the road. Uh, Number two, perception. That you don't have. Uh, Otherwise, you would see, like President Trump over there, he doesn't understand why North Korea is acting the way it is. It's because China is behind them pulling their strings. And the reason why is very simple. China and Russia have two main things. They don't want anybody by their borders. And if you become chummy with North Korea, uh, you're going to be right at the border of China. And they don't like that. They want to have somebody with ruthless dictator next door to them just as they are to their people. Same with Russia. Why did you guys admit Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania into the NATO? Then you wonder how come the Russians are upset. Because that's their buffer zone. You guys don't see that. That's a perception that you guys don't understand. Okay. And number three, comprehension. Well, I've harped this a long time in my other videos, so I'll just say that you have none. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this mess. Also, wanted to tell you, um, think of government and life as a two-lane highway. One going north, one going south. And as long as you stay within that two-lane highway, you're okay. But you want to be, as you're driving, remember you're as close as possible to the yellow line on both ends. Because that's the safest part. At least you know where your counterpart coming north is doing and your counterpart coming south is doing. If you drive, like most people here in America that I've seen drive all over the place from shoulder to over the yellow line and back to the shoulder, that's not the way to pursue and drive your society. And that's the way you're driving right now. You're driving like you're drunk. And you shouldn't do that. This is an analogy I've wanted to give to you guys, okay? Also, when the 25 people on my planet decided to change, that was a tall order because they had to get rid of uh, their form of religion, their form of politics, their form of perception, and their form of what a citizen should be. And that's something you guys aren't willing to give up here, especially you Americans. But look at the problems that you've had in the past. 100 years ago, almost in 1920, you passed two amendments, which the men considered horrible at the time. One of them was a prohibition, 18th Amendment, remember? And how can you prohibit alcohol? You found out the hard way you can't. You had to repeal it. That's the only amendment you ever had to do another amendment to repeal right now. And the other one, well, all men know, was the right of women to vote, and it creates other problems. Look what you got now. You got boss ladies and dragon ladies and all kinds of ladies. So you see what I mean? That you did. Now look at recent history, like in the last week. Look what happened to Ireland. They're a Catholic country, very much driven by the Catholic Church. And they, after a decade, found out that their stupid law that the church threw down their neck on abortion to avoid it was not good. And these are Catholics going against their church and repealing the own constitutional amendment they put on there. This should be a lesson to you Americans. If a Catholic can do that, you guys can change your constitution. I mean, other than the repealing of the 18th by the 23rd, that's all you have in your constitution. And they say, oh yeah, the Dred Scott decision of 1857, that's still in force. The Supreme Court doesn't come out and said nothing against Dred Scott. And you say, oh yeah, the Brown Board of Education in 1954, that's another decision. What the Supreme Court needs to do is to bring their decisions and say, okay, we made these decisions decades ago, but it's changed. And that's the way your government should work. And not by politics. It's by the way of the changing times and by the way of the people. People should come first, not politics, not bench, not money, not religion. And you are running your government with money, religion, and power, and politics. Your party says do this. Look at Georgia. The only reason that Abrams got to run for governor because she got a lot of money from outside of Georgia. Georgia should be elected by Georgians and not by outside party members. You are a state, and you should elect your people based on the people's here, not other people coming in from other outside influence. That's what you got to understand. You're a member state of the United States. If you don't know what that means, then you got a problem. That's what I'm trying to tell you, people, especially Americans, because I'm here. But people from the planet, it can be the same way in France. You can be in one province and then vote for another. So what the heck are you guys doing? I mean, remember when I told you in my other video that you elect Joe Blow from the street as president? Well, look what you did. You elected guys like Andrew Jackson, which was a disaster. And he made the Indian nation a disastrous. You elected Andrew Johnson. Well, he was just second banana to Abraham Lincoln. But you should remember the second seat is not where you put guys you don't want. And you have done that numerous times and it's backfired on you. Remember? You did that with John Tyler because you didn't like him, so you put him in there, and what happens? Tippecanoe goes, and you got John Tyler for 4 years. You did the same thing with Millard Fillmore. You elected old Rough and Ready, and what? Uh-oh. And then James A. Garfield. You elected him, and guess what? You got Chester Alan Arthur. Or how about Theodore Roosevelt? Oh, McKinley will take care of him. We don't want old Teddy out there messing up the deal. So let's put him where he can make no fun. So what happens? Bye-bye McKinley, hello Teddy. And more problems on the world stage. And then you had the same thing with Mr. Roosevelt. He ran for a fourth term. You didn't like Mr. Truman because, remember, he got elected by a boss in Missouri. So he was a mafia guy, as you called him. Mr. Pendergrass, remember? So where you put Harry? You put him in as, we don't, and you saw all the background of what happens when you do that, and you still did it. So, Mr. Roosevelt with his girlfriend in Warm Springs, Georgia, went bye-bye, and you had Mr. Truman, who had no qualms over blowing up Japan. I mean, it's a guy who should never have been president, even though he gave him hell. He should never have been president because he instituted the nuclear age. Sure, if it wasn't the United States, it would have been somebody else, but wouldn't it have been nicer if it was somebody else? But you guys don't get that. Uh, then, you guys still didn't learn. Kennedys didn't like Lyndon Johnson because he was a powerful member of the Senate in Texas, which was a powerful state in that time, Democratic-wise. So what did you do? You threw him in the vice presidency. Oh, and then let him go. And poor Johnson, when Kennedy got shot, he was ready to kill himself. People don't know that, but check the history. He was so down and depressed it wasn't even funny. And what does he do, poor guy? And I can't blame him on this one. The other guys I can blame. But Johnson inherited Vietnam and inherited a stupid way of looking at things. Dominoes. If we don't stop the communists here, everything goes down. And what happened? Everything went down. Anyway, 58,000 people died for nothing. I don't understand you Americans. I don't understand you Terrence. You kill your people for nothing. There's been very few wars. World War II is an exception. You had to do it. But the wars in the 20th century were stupid. For what? Look at Korea. You haven't solved a single thing. And China's still your mortal enemy, and you still have friendly, and you owe a lot of money to them. How could you get yourself in that trouble? From an alien speaking from another planet, I don't understand that, let alone comprehend it. But this is the way you are. This is the way my home ancestral planet was, and that's why they blew themselves up. And that's why in 2065, when the Moshka take care of you guys, they'll come over here and view your records and figure out what the heck were they thinking. Or anyway, this is what I get to say. Thanks.